Being a game master is one of the most rewarding things you can do in the TTRPG hobby. You get to build worlds, craft stories, and watch your players come alive in them. But here's the truth. It's also a lot of work. There's prep, scheduling, and there's a lot of emotional energy that is given. And eventually that spark, that excitement that made you want to run the game starts to fade. If you've ever found yourself saying, I'm tired of this campaign, or I don't know if I even want to run this week, then this episode is for you. Hi, my name is Brian, and I'm the host of the Bearded Nerd podcast, where we help new players and game masters learn, play, and grow their love for tabletop RPGs. Today, we're talking about GM burnout, how to recognize the signs, prevent it before it hits, and rediscover what made you love running games in the first place. So if you're ready to learn how to prevent and recognize GM burnout, sit back, relax, and let's dive into this episode of the Bearded Nerd Podcast. What does GM burnout actually look like? GM burnout isn't just being physically or emotionally tired, so to speak. It's an emotional exhaustion mixed with creative depletion. Some of the common signs that you need to look out for are feelings of anxiety and irritability before sessions, dreading prep time, losing interest in your own story, feeling disconnected from your players, and struggling to remember why you even started a campaign. A lot of us ignore these signs thinking, I just need a week off, I need a break. But burnout isn't cured by taking one Friday off. It's about rebalancing your approach to the game itself. When the fun turns into obligation, burnout is already knocking on the door. If you're feeling any of those signs, right? If you're feeling any of those feelings, for lack of better words, the root causes of burnout usually happen when your effort and your enjoyment aren't matching up. Let's break it down. And let's break it down with some common sense causes. Number one, over-prepping. You spend hours creating details your players never see. The result is frustration and fatigue. Creative overload. You feel like you need new ideas every week, and therefore you have idea paralysis and pressure. Player energy mismatch. Your players aren't engaging at the same level you are. You feel like you're doing all the work to keep the table fun. Life pressure, work, family, time, stress, everything bleed into the hobby. So GMing just becomes another responsibility. And then finally, unrealistic expectations. So you're comparing your game to actual play shows or social media highlights. So there's a little bit of performance anxiety. There's self-criticism, but, and this is going to be a gut punch, there's pride. Just plain old pride. But if you're dealing with any of those five, here are the fixes, plain and simple. For over-prepping, prep for what's likely to happen. Don't prep everything out. Just use flexible outlines and reusable content. Reskin it. And you may say, well, Brian, that might not work. It's going to work. I'm telling you because I've been burnt out. Every one of these things here I have felt in some way or capacity. And I had to pump the brakes. And I had to tell myself that I needed to make a change. So instead of over-prepping, I started just reusing things and reusing quirks and just general content. I became more flexible. When I dealt with creative overload, right, and you might be feeling that, the recycling, remixing, the lift and shift material and methodology is what works for a lot of people. A good story, remember, is built on reimagining, not necessarily reinventing. So lift and shift things. For player energy mismatch, invite your players in world building or scene creation. Share the narrative load. Give them the description, the foundation, and then turn the spotlight on a player and say, okay, well, what do you think about this? Or how does your character interpret this, or that? Talk to your players like human beings, right? Involve them in those things. And of course, life's always going to get in the way. Things are going to happen. So set a realistic cadence. Instead of running a weekly game, 3 hours a session, run a bi-weekly game, right? So twice a month, still running a campaign, run it twice a month, where on your off weeks, you prep for the next session. And that way, the week where you play, you're not doing anything but basically just waiting to run the game. You're not painting minis. You're not doing any of that. You're simply enjoying the time off. So for example, when I used to run my bi-weekly Star Wars game, now it's weekly, but when I used to run the bi-weekly game, we were, I think if it was during the time when my son was born, so things were kind of chaotic. I told him, hey, life is crazy right now. I need to go every 2 weeks. So what I would do is that during the off week, I would prep all my visuals, all my music, all my cues, everything, because this was an online game. So that the week of the game, I would just relax. I would look at my notes, would be good to go, but I would relax. I would watch TV, I would read, I would paint minis, I would do all sorts of things. So that worked for me, and it's something I highly recommend. And then set expectations for yourself. Remember, your players didn't come for a production. They came for connection. Unless, and this is the caveat, if you're running a pay-to-play game, if you're running a production like an actual live show, then you have some other things that you got to worry about. You have to remember that your players are paying you for a good time. So you need to kind of put that motivation in the focus, and not that casual, unpaid GMs don't put their players' fun in the driver's seat, so to speak. But there's a bit more responsibility because people are paying you. So you have to kind of sit back and say, okay, what's really going on? Let me adjust everything more frantically than casual. Because with a casual game, you could just say, hey, y'all, I'm taking a 2-week hiatus. And at the end of the 2 week, we're going to readjust a little bit of our schedule because I'm feeling a little bit of GM burnout. We're not stopping the campaign at all, but I just need to reassess how I approach the game. You can do that too for paid games, but you have to do all the logistics of like pausing their money, doing all that, right? You know, the financially responsible things as a business owner. So keep that in mind. But let's talk about preventing burnout. So the best way you don't feel burnout or to not get burnout is to prevent it before it even starts. And it isn't about less GMing. It's just about doing this smarter. So simplify your prep. Use session templates and reusables. Focus on what matters this session, right? And track only changes between sessions. This is where recording your sessions is really important, especially if you're online. Record them, dump them into some sort of repository, and you can even dump them into certain software that will transcribe it and then provide you a high-level overview so that you remember what you did that session. From there, share the spotlight. You know what's awesome about this one? You just get to take a seat, step back, and let your players run it, right? So let your players describe scenes. Let them name the NPCs from the regions their characters are from, so that when you are in those regions, your players are acting more like the tour guide and you're just there giving support, right? And let your players make the moral decisions that shape the world. They're going to feel more invested, and you're going to have to, you're really going to have to laugh at this one because you're going to feel less responsible, right? You're not carrying the fun. Everyone is equally carrying the fun, and they're going to appreciate that more. And then rotate the chair. Honestly, something that you should do is play often. If you're burnt out, play often. And this all starts with a conversation with your players. If your players care for you, which hopefully they do, they're going to support you. And you can say, hey, I need someone to run a one shot once a month. So every week I will run a game, but you all are going to run a one shot, or someone's going to run once a month. And even increase it. Hey, Friday nights are our RPG night, right? We run RPGs every Friday night. And every other week, I will run our main campaign. But the other 2 weeks, I need y'all to run a one shot or some other type of adventure because I'm feeling burnt out and I would also like to play. So it gives you time to recharge, and it lets your players see your world, or see a world, or rather the world of GMing from your perspective. You could also kind of run a campaign within the game world, but on the opposite side of the world. So you really let your players see the world from behind the screen. From there, have shorter campaign arcs, right? Plan arcs that are not continuous. Maybe they're 12, sessions, right? Maybe they're 16 sessions. So a 16-week period of a mini or kind of short arc, right? I would say short-term arcs are maybe 12 to 16 sessions, maybe. I would say 16 probably is the sweet spot for shorter campaigns. Mini campaigns are like 8 weeks, in my opinion. You can't, and then one shots are for, yes, technically it's one shot, it's one session, but I would even expand it where it's like an expanded one shot is 3 sessions, right? You can kind of play around with that. But again, shorter campaign arcs. It hits a satisfying conclusion before fatigue sets in. It's enough time for you to say, okay, whether it's 8 session blocks, 12 or 16 session blocks, you have a certain time frame to say, okay, I have this amount of time and it's perfect and it's satisfying and I'm not going to get fatigued by it. And then check in regularly. Every few sessions, ask your players, hey, have you been having fun? What do you feel is dragging, right? Burnout hides in silence. Communication keeps it away. And if your players are feeling the same way, they're going to pick up your vibe. They're going to pick up that energy. So talk about it. Now, this is for folks. If you've already feel burned out, I need you to take these tips. These are really important. I need you to communicate with your players. I need you to talk to them. You need to not ghost your table. You need to pause with some purpose and explain honestly that you need a creative break. Your players are going to respect your transparency because you are treating them like friends and like adults. So don't pause and ghost them. Actually respond to them. From there, play a game. Don't run one. Join a different game as a player. Not that you couldn't join a game with your gaming group, just get a fresh perspective. Remember what it feels like to just have fun. On top of that, play a different system. That learning triggers things in your brain called endorphins and dopamine, and not the type of dopamine that you get from scrolling TikTok. I'm talking about the things that you and your body feel when you learn something new, that confidence, that fun that you get. Go ahead and do it. You need to remember what fun feels like. And then, if you want, if you're ready, run a one-shot, a silly one. It could be a pre-made adventure or like a really slapstick comedy one-shot where you don't have to worry about anything. And just rediscover the joy of simple fun. And then sit down, pray and meditate. I do believe in prayer and meditation. And reconnect with your why. Think about it. Why did you start GMing? Was it because you enjoyed storytelling? Did you enjoy exploration and character drama? Well, if that's what you really love, then focus on that in your prep and in your GMing. It's really straightforward, right? Burnout fades when you rediscover your purpose behind the screen. I love storytelling and I love world building. I am not a huge fan of combat unless it's in person because I really love minis, have an addiction, so to speak. But I love the storytelling. I love the lore and the world building. So when I get to sit down with my friends and world build together, it makes it worth it. Now, I'm also obviously, I've talked about this, I have players that pay for sessions and for their game. So with those paid games, I take that same approach, but I also keep my player in mind because they're paying me for their service. So that is going to be a focus on a later episode, but I want to give some creative recharge tips. And before I do that, again, I want to thank you all for listening. And I want to thank our sponsor, Dungeon Soap. They're an awesome company. Zach is the soap wizard, so to speak, of Dungeon Soap. They are carefully crafted fantasy-themed skincare products that are not only good for the environment, but good for your skin. They are made with cruelty-free vegan products. They are extremely clean. So for me and my family, we are really big sticklers on clean products. Some would call us even crunchy. So I am very cautious about what I put on my body and in my body. And Dungeon Soap, I don't have to worry about that. Their containers, right, where you get the soap are cardboard, so you can recycle them, right? They're just environmentally great. It's a carbon neutral footprint, and they smell lovely. I personally love the Paladin, and that's because I love Paladins in my games, and the smell is just phenomenal. So I would highly recommend the Paladin, but all the scents are amazing. When you use Bearded 10 at checkout, you get 10% off the entire order, and that actually helps the podcast, and it pays for the lights, so to speak. So use Bearded 10 at checkout, get 10% off your entire order, and thank you for supporting. I really appreciate it. Now, lastly, we are going to talk about the creative recharge tips that you should take during your break time. This is time in between sessions, or if you take a break. Doesn't matter, but you need to recharge. So these are the creative things that I would do, and these are 5 different tips, so to speak. You need to watch a movie in a genre that you find inspiring or just fun. You need to read books, read magazines, comic books, manga, whatever it may be. Read. You can read the player journals if you want, or old notes, just to remember the story's best moments, but just read. You need other sources of inspiration. You need to remember, and again, recharge. You need to go ahead and try another system. Like I said, try another system, another genre. Give it a little bit of variety. Learn something new and steep yourself into why you did what you did. And you need to try another system as a player first, because that is going to allow you to have fun. Collaborate with another GM. Swap ideas. Have a network. Join a Discord or a Facebook group. There are plenty out there. You're more than welcome to join our Discord, where that's why we built it, to teach other players and GMs, but to also have a shared space where we as game masters could just kind of vent about things and swap ideas and share content. And then lastly, use world building prompts to brainstorm casually. No pressure. There's no pressure to this. You're just greasing the engine, so to speak. You're greasing the wheels, as they say. This is just for fun. You're building stuff. Set it aside in your OneNote or in your journal and just have fun with it. Again, it's to grease the wheels. Burnout doesn't mean you're a bad GM, okay? It just means you've been giving more than what you've been receiving. Running games is an act of creativity, leadership, and generosity, but it should also feed you, your imagination, your excitement, and your friendships. So if you're feeling tired, give yourself permission to reset. The stories will be there when you're ready to tell them again. And remember, talk to your players. Your players are there to have fun, and they probably like you. So let them in. Be transparent with them and talk to them. They're adults. They'll be okay, and they'll 100% understand your burnout. So if you're feeling tired, give yourself permission to reset and relax and just be in the moment. If you want a printable resource with signs of burnout, just as a reminder, prevention steps, and just a creative recharge list, you can grab the GM Burnout Recovery Toolkit on Patreon. It's there just more of like, hey, I'm feeling anxious about this. Let me check the toolkit. Oh, yep, this is a sign of burnout. Let me go ahead and address it. Right? It's just there for you to kind of utilize when you need it. But anyway, until next time, y'all, prep less, play more, take care of yourself behind the screen, be compassionate to others and to yourself, and keep gaming, friends.